Okay, Scott, who's the host of Zoom? Who's gonna let somebody in?
I talked to her, she said you're gonna be a co-host.
Oh, you're co-host, see, look at that.
That's what Heather said.
Okay.
Oh, no. Told me to do what I usually do, and then you're gonna be co-host.
All right, we can't accept the minutes on the 27th because Peter's not here. And Bruno was not in. That was the meeting to get him in, okay? So
27th.
that'll go
Yep.
through. And then we have the meeting from the 29th. So there's 1, 2, 3. We can do that one. All right, so we'll get that. We'll get there.
Scott, you're streaming right now, right?
Yes. Brooke has to be made the co-host before anything can happen. Hey, Neil.
We're good?
All set?
All right. Good evening and welcome to the February 3rd monthly meeting of the Paxton Planning Board. We're here at the Public Safety Complex. It is also a hybrid meeting, so if some of you are joining via Zoom, we'll make sure that you have the ability to join. This is really the first. Well, let me back up. First, we're going to welcome Bruno, our newest member. We'll start there. So, welcome aboard, and we'll go from there. You're now the 5th member, so we have a complete board, although one of our members this evening is missing. That's Mr. Shure. So, welcome aboard, and I wanted to thank Jason for conducting the meeting last Monday in my absence. I thought you guys did a great job, got it all done very succinctly, and we're ready to move on. So, having said that, this is really the first meeting that we've had since the special town meeting in November. So there are a couple of items that we're going to go over later. Our agenda calls for the first couple of items to approve previous meetings' minutes. So looking at the agenda, we do have 3 members present for the October 29th 2024 meeting. I'll entertain a motion at this point to accept or amend or whatever you guys would like to do.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay. Any further discussion on the, excuse me, on the minutes? That was the evening we had the public hearing to wrap up the work that the steering group had done on the updating the Paxton zoning bylaw. So it was involved, but we got through that. So any changes, any amendments, anything you guys would like to add? Okay, we'll call for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Okay. So the next item was November 13th, which was, let's get to that one. That was the planning board member when we, that was actually, I guess, no, that wasn't the town meeting. When was the special town? That was the 19th, wasn't it? Okay. So we discussed each of the sections from the public hearing, and we have those before us. Again, these are pretty cut and dried, straightforward reviews or minutes of what took place at those meetings. So I'll entertain a motion at this point to accept those minutes. We have Jason, we have David, so we're here myself. So
I'll make a motion to accept.
do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now, the next set of minutes to be accepted were from last Monday evening, when we met jointly with the Select Board. I was absent, and at the present time, we only have 2 of the 3 members present, so we're going to have to hold that till the next month's meeting. So that's where we are with that. As I said, I met and introduced Bruno. He's our newest member. We'd like to welcome him here. We're looking forward to working with him. We do have several things on our plate, and one of the things that we're going to get into as we start moving forward is a discussion for the residents in town of the zoning bylaw revisions and updates. So first, I've had discussions with the town administrator, Heather, regarding the MBTA requirements, and we're still in the throes of that process because we have to work with the EHOLC, which is the Economic, help me here, Roberta, Economic Office of
Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities.
and Livable Communities. Okay. So the way the process works is they are kind of spearheading this for the state. We have to submit a preliminary bylaw, we'll say, with all the approved zoning as part of it, and get it to them, get it reviewed, they'll get it back to us, and then it goes to the town. So to have all of that done in a timely fashion for the annual town meeting in May, it still doesn't look like there's enough, and primarily because the state Supreme Judicial Court amended the original rules or laws back that were out for over almost 2 years. They amended them in mid-January, if I'm correct. Okay. So at this point, I don't want the residents to be concerned or skeptical of what we're kind of doing. We will keep everybody informed, but the MBTA requirements for that bylaw will not be addressed this evening, other than to give you this update, and they definitely will not be on the annual town meeting in May. We're looking for something early fall in terms of a date to bring that forward. Now, having said that, we do want to continue discussions on the updates of the current zoning bylaws. Some revisions that we've made, most of them were clerical or grammatical, however you want to classify them. Organizational is another word we could use to, I guess, I'll use update or bring them more into the 21st century so that they're easier to understand and easier to enforce, less gray area, more black and white. So, along those lines, we are going to have information available for the residents to review and hopefully continue a dialogue with the planning board, the zoning board, and this update group consisting of the town administrator, Heather Monroe, the chair of the zoning board, which is Roberta Bryant, myself, Neil Bagdis, chair of planning, and Brooke Maliff, correct? Did I get it? Maliff, okay. Who is now the, what's your new position?
Permitting and Community Development Coordinator.
Okay, the Permitting and Community Development Coordinator. So the four of us, along with outside help from the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, will try to get this thing buttoned up and have it ready for the annual town meeting. One of the things we have kicked around thus far is there seem to be concerns about the changes in the bylaw to the business section. So at this point, we feel comfortable in taking the proposed changes to increase the business zoning from the center of town to the Worcester line off the table. We're just not going to go with that. We are going to go again with some, what I call some improvements to the overall rules. So along that line, Roberta, do you want to kind of help bring the residents up to speed where we are as this evening?
Sure. I think what's important to the residents is that they understand this is something that we need to do in order to adopt these new streamlined, new bylaws that don't contradict within its own set of rules and regulations, in that this is the opportunity between now and when the warrant articles are finalized for people to really ask questions and understand what we were trying to convey in November at the special town meeting. I agree with you, leaving off the expansion of the business zone, but still cleaning up some of the definitions within the business district section of the bylaws to allow for different types of uses that we didn't have before, and clarifying certain sizes, but not changing where they would be located. I think that's very important. We really do want the public to weigh in on this, to look over the definitions and make sure that they feel as though they're comfortable and that they understand what they're saying. I mean, this is a living, breathing document, but it should be something that everyone understands and agrees with and feels as though is applicable to the town of Paxton. So we're hoping that this next few weeks will be everyone's opportunity to sit with the red line version, with the cleaned up version, to really look at these. And then, from what I understand, Neil, you'll be holding, this group that you mentioned, you and me and Heather and Brooke, will be available at these public meeting sessions, so that we're doing everything on these Monday nights, I think, is your day. And we'll be
Correct.
Available regardless of whether anyone has a comment. It'll be on the agenda and be available for discussion either via Zoom or in person. And we're hoping for positive feedback before the warrant article.
Can you and I just go through a basic recap of the process that we've undertaken over the last, it's almost 22 months when this project first began. So I'll let you kind of start, and then I'll ask you some questions, or you can ask me
Sure.
questions coming
Sure.
back.
Yep. The town voluntarily reached out to CMRPC, recognizing that the bylaws were dated, and that there were, as we started to, or as we had been implementing them, either through subdivision laws or zoning board of appeals, there were some inconsistencies within them. And they were outdated, to your point. There were some definitions that were listed that didn't have any further data in the bylaws that it referenced to, and vice versa. There were sections of the bylaws that didn't have a definition that it needed in order to clarify what it was. And CMRPC went through, looked at other communities, similar communities of size, rural sort of density, and brought best practices in for the group to review and discuss and make changes to. And really, the biggest section, as you had mentioned, is the definitions. I would think the other section that's important and really made a positive impact, or will make a positive impact on the town, is the integration of the comments from our municipal light department.
Correct.
And those changes as well as solar, some changes to the marijuana bylaw that have happened in the state, and we hadn't yet updated that. Some additional sort of perimeter securities for uses like marijuana and other sort of adult uses that could happen around a church or a school, that we broadened those perimeter districts so that they would be farther away. And then we had the required ADU language that we had to adopt, which did get adopted
That
in
did
that
pass, that's
special
correct. So
town
that's
meeting.
already in, yep.
So that is in. So these next steps will be, we did attempt to present this all in one body in November. I think people were very focused on the expansion of the business district.
Yes.
We spent a lot of time talking about that and was not able to spend a lot of time talking about the other changes. So we're hoping that these next few weeks will be an opportunity for the public to focus on a little bit boring language, but important to the town.
Well, I agree, and I think part of it is that the consultant that we used, in a painstaking process, went literally through line by line of each section. And as you've just mentioned, we now have a specific section of the zoning bylaws with definitions in them. Instead of reading something or going to look for the definition somewhere and coming back. So it's important that the general public at this point take some time to review if they have concerns. So the information will be available. Brooke, I believe we're going to do it on the town website, and I believe there are going to be some printed copies at strategic places throughout town. So, like the library,
Library.
town hall?
Yes.
Okay. So if somebody is interested in reviewing the process that we've undertaken and would have any type of question or comment, we would welcome them to come to a future meeting. One of the things that we would like to find out is if the citizens would like a general warrant article about accepting everything as written, or to break it down section by section. And that way we can take comment, and we can move with it that way. If we did it section by section, and something inadvertently was overlooked or didn't pass by chance at the annual town meeting, it could be brought back in the fall. So we could, again, address it at that point, bring it back in, and try to get this completed. After acceptance, if I'm going to be very optimistic, if accepted at annual town meeting, it goes to the Attorney General's office and the legislature, and they review it for up to, I think, 90 or 120 days before it actually goes into place and becomes binding by the town. So we would appreciate all input in any form, whether it be personal questions, written questions, email questions to people on this group that we have, funneling them through Brooke or through Heather. But it's important that the residents take an active approach to this. It does affect everybody at some point, whether it's now or later in the future or whatever. So I think with that, this is kind of where we're kicking this off tonight. One of the things I might call your attention to is the current zoning bylaw. If you take the time to read a current, and I have one dated here that's most recently updated, I believe. It started back in 2001, and then there were updates to it. I don't have the complete chain of events here. But if you look at what we have in place as of today and compare it to what we're proposing, it makes it easier than try to read that red line version. Because red line took this and then crossed things out and then see sections somewhere, and you're back and forth and whatever. And as sitting on the group that helped create it, I found myself at times very confused. So that's kind of where we are, and then at some point there will be one final hearing before the town meeting so that everybody has a chance to discuss this before it goes forward for a vote in May. So, anybody joined virtually? No? Okay, that's good. Any other questions on agenda items before we go to old business? Yes?
Can I just add one more thing about
Please.
the MBTA communities? I just want to clarify your statement about the bylaw being submitted for review, which is true. We are doing it. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that it's really just format. We had a number of questions about how to comply with the MBTA communities bylaw number of parcels to be submitted, the language around it, how we include the inclusionary zoning, your question about the additional land that would be required for septic and things like that. So it doesn't mean that what is being submitted as format approval is the language that is, the town is seeking to put on the special town meeting in November. We are hoping to spend the rest of the year doing the same thing that we're doing with the zoning bylaws, which is holding additional public hearings, talking through the sites that have been discussed to date, talking about how all of the other zoning bylaws impact these particular zones, understanding the requirements from the state. So we are just getting a preliminary approval to the structure of the bylaw and not the details that the town gets to decide itself, so that we can spend the time up until the warrant articles due for the special town meeting in the fall. We, being a small community adjacent to for this bylaw, have until December of this year, 2025.
Yep.
But we thought it was important to really spend the time, get the answers from the state that we need. We did wait until after the lawsuit with Milford was decided and has been decided very specifically. So now that we can go forward with all of the information and again, seek public input prior to putting it on the warrant for the fall.
Correct, and again, I think the important thing here is that when discussions happen, whether it be on social media, whether it be on a live meeting like this or a live rebroadcast, people understand that we need to deal in fact. We can't deal in any type of fear tactics that may come out, say, I don't want this because, or we can't do it. But our biggest concern with this whole bylaw is it's to be in compliance with what the state asks or mandates.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen. They just want to make sure that each town of the 117 communities in the state that have to comply with this, in fact, end up that way. And again, being a small, rural, adjacent community, it's more and more and more difficult for a prospective developer to come in and say, yes, I'd like to undertake that project. So we do have some safety measures or small impediments to mass development and along those lines. And we're always trying to maintain the rural character of our community. But again, we welcome the input from the residents in town. So, anything else? You guys have any other questions on this?
Not on this, but this handout.
Well, we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so that's the big thing. So my charge to the members of the board is, through Brooke, get a copy of the current and kind of just see what you think about it, realizing that it is being updated, and then get an electronic copy of the proposed updates and kind of see how they feel. And feel free to discuss it with friends and neighbors and whatever. Hey, what do you think about this? Because I saw that, and things along that line. So, okay? Now, to David's Roberta, thank you. As I said, I don't want to keep you any longer. I know you made a point to get here. We received a letter from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. I don't know if you all, did they get it, or I?
We have the letter now.
All right, that's fine. Anyway, we received a letter. And part of the discussion in the letter talks about subsidized housing inventory, or what we refer to now as Chapter 40, where a developer can come to a community, pick up a piece of land, and this has got nothing to do with what we've previously been talking about, so please don't get them confused. But anyway, and if they decide that they wanted to build a 40B project, the state guidelines allow them to supersede the local bylaws in zoning, in terms of densities and all kinds of things like that. So one of the things that comes out and mentions in here, and which you have the handout in front of you, is where Paxton presently stands in terms of compliance with the 10% rule. So Brooke was great. She got this from CMRPC this afternoon, I guess, because I wanted to make sure we were dealing in fact. And the data comes from the 2020 census. And at that point, there were 1,677 dwelling units in town, of which 71 of them are deemed as affordable units. So some of them are new, some of them have been redesignated, whatever, but that puts us at 4.23%. And our goal to get to is 10%. So part of this process moving forward is we have to find places when developments come in, whether they be small subdivisions, 10 units or 8 units, something is going to have to be in those communities with an affordable lot or couple in there that will continue to grow this number. Now, as you look down the list, you know, we're better than some, because I believe this is most of the communities in the state. Is it all 300 and, no, I think you stopped
I omitted some of them just to get to Paxton.
to the 2 page, okay. But I mean, some exceed, which, you know, they're 10%, which is fine, but again, we're right in the mix, and if you look around, let's just pick some of the, nope, they're not all on here. Okay, I was looking at the Wachusett communities to see where we were, but we have the whole document, and we can give you that.
I see Rutland's at 2.5.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so again,
Princeton is 1.9.
yeah, there you go. So again, we're, you know, twice that, we're almost 3 times what the other ones were. But it's just, we're sitting okay, but we're not where we need to be, and that's going to be something that we have to consider as we move forward with future development in town. All right.
I would just say, there's no penalty
No,
for not reaching the 10%. As you had mentioned, the 40B developer sort of gets to create his own destiny or her own destiny, and if you don't have 10%, which a lot of the communities don't, in particular, it's almost like a goal that is hard to achieve, especially before inclusionary zoning, because the more units you develop that aren't capital A affordable, meaning they have some sort of a formal subsidy.
Yep.
You're constantly reducing that number of affordable units. But there have been times, and I think the town did receive an application years ago on Muir Meadow that was a
Correct.
40B,
yes.
which ended up not going forward because of the required sewage treatment plant that the developer would have had to have put in. But it is something that oftentimes there can be some negotiations with the developer. It's usually just a town that hard and fast, you know, wants no development. So given that the town has adopted inclusionary zoning and understands the importance of different types of housing, different costs of housing, I think it's a good number to be at, actually.
Yeah, I
4%.
think, yeah, as I said, compared to some of the other communities that you would match us up against, we're sitting pretty good here. And again, just to keep the rural character of this town, we do not have sewers, so that's somewhat of a drawback or an impediment to large development, because they would have to have on-site treatment to do something along that line. The other thing is, we don't have a lot of large parcels left in town that would lend itself to something like that. On the flip side, when we created a couple of the projects in town over the last 10 or 15 years, the Forestdale Extension community up there and that big loop up, they're all duplex homes up there, but I think they were 2 or 3 units or 4 or 6 houses, because they're duplexes, that were designated as affordable. And also in the, what's the one on Grove Street? Is it Paxton Highlands? Is that what it's called on the way to Holden when you go down there?
I'm not sure.
I think
Okay,
so.
anyway, it's on the way to Anna Maria, or it's on the way to Holden, I can't remember the direct name of it. But that also has some affordable units in that complex. So again, we look ahead and we try to work with developers to keep these things at least on the table, and then we discuss it with them as we move forward. So.
Can I
anything-
ask,
Certainly.
with no penalty being at the 10%, what would be the advantage of getting to the 10%?
Then the developer wouldn't be able to sort of subvert your zoning. They would have to comply 100% with your zoning.
I see, okay.
So right now, being under the 10%, you have to treat their development as if it is by right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Thank you. So, you know, 1,677 units at 2020, and we're at 71. We're, as I said, almost halfway there. And I don't ever see us getting to the 10%.
Yeah, no.
But again, I think the biggest factor involved in this is open space. Large parcels are something that could be purchased and then tried to get developed and done. Some of them that, in the 25 or 6 years that I've been on the board, there have been 2 or 3 projects that have come through. Roberta mentioned Muir Meadows. There was one off of West Street at one point that someone was considering putting homes in that turned into a single-family lot. Very large, we'll say an estate-type lot that had, I think, 16 or 18 acres in it. So, you know, that was taken off the market. And we'll just kind of see what happens, so. All right, anything else, David? Any other old business, new business?
Nope, nope, looks good.
Bruno, how do you feel so far? How you like this, right?
It's not bad.
Yeah, see, that's good. Brooke, do you have anything else for us this evening?
No, that was everything.
Okay, that's what I saw on the agenda, so we're good. Anybody, any comments from the public here that's here? Yes, no? Okay, we're good. Not sure if you're here for the transmission of the meeting or whatever, but we want to make sure we address that. All right, so at that point, I guess I would, let's discuss next meeting, which would be March 3rd, if it holds true to form.
Isn't March 3rd the caucus?
I thought it was March 6th. Is it? No, that's, can't have it then. That's a good
Let me
point.
look right now.
Hold on, let's go there. Yes, you are right, and the 6th is the snow date. All right, so we would probably then be looking at 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day. Great night to have a meeting. So why don't we move it to then, and Brooke, if you would just notify the
Oops.
powers that be here that would be the night we would need the room.
I'll be on vacation skiing,
Oh, well, okay.
so.
We'll miss you.
Yep.
But again, if nothing comes up at this point, then the meeting would go till April, when we're getting very close with warrant articles and things along that line. So,
So you'll have the meeting regardless and put this on the agenda just in case.
just in case.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay? So we'll do the 17th of March at 7 PM. And at that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, unless you guys have anything else. I mean, just,
Nope, I'll make a motion.
okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you for your time. Half an hour, we did it. I told my lovely...